Hi, my name's Ian Puddick. People know me online because I was involved in a huge police operation called Operation Bohan by the Counter-Terrorism Police. I won every single case. The police abused me in custody. I was brutalised. The CCTV was wiped. And I made a huge fuss about it and tried to hold every single officer to account, including the police commissioner. During that time, I met David Shayler. And David Shayler is a former MI5 officer. We became very good friends. He stayed with me here at my office for quite a period of time. Unfortunately, that was a joke. So we're going to do an interview with David Shayler, and it's about life inside MI5. Now, obviously, there are restrictions, the Official Secrets Act, etc. So we're not going to breach the Official Secrets Act. David wrote a book that the government initially tried to ban called Spies, Lies and Whistleblowers. And it was eventually republished with some redactions. I did actually find out what the redactions were, and it's very interesting. So I'm going to do something I've never done before, and I probably, hopefully, will never do again. David has had a very difficult time. I'm not going to say any more than that. You can watch the interviews and you can make up your own mind what kind of lifestyle David has had to have, unfortunately, because of how he's been treated. So none of my YouTube channel, some of my videos have had 1.5 million views. My YouTube channel is not monetized. None of my videos are monetized. I don't make 1p from YouTube, and my plans are never to do that. However, this one video, there will be a link under the video for donations at your discretion, and every single penny will go to my good friend David Shayler. As I said, you can make up your mind. You listen to what David's got to say. Listen to what's happened to him. He's a good man. He's an honest man. He told the truth and was destroyed for it. Well, not totally destroyed. So that's my introduction, and I look forward to speaking to David.
To give you an idea of how this happened, so it was announced in March '92 that MI5 were going to take over, but the actual takeover date, when they formally took the lead, was going to be a year later. So in the interim, there's this famous operation called Operation Whiteness. It's my first week in this counter-IRA section. And we've got so far, we've literally got a lorry bomb. Even the A1 special teams have drilled a hole in the roof. Definitely homemade explosive in there. There's detonators in there. This is, you know, you've got it ready to go and everything else. Surveillance is on these people. There's arrest teams there from SO13 who go in and arrest, because MI5 don't arrest.
No, got no powers of arrest, no.
Yeah. And what happens? They can't find George Churchill Coleman, who's the head of the anti-terrorist squad, to give the arrest order. Now, MI5 officers saying to the police, you can arrest them anyway, you're a copper.
Yeah.
Well, I can arrest them as a citizen.
Citizen, yeah, citizen's arrest.
Yeah, and they're oh, I can't do that, can't do that. In the meantime, these guys twig that they're being followed, obviously, because one guy, a guy called Jimmy Cyril McGuinness, goes like that to the surveillance cameras. He walks out of this yard and then legs it. And meanwhile, by the time they've got everything sorted out, these guys have disappeared. Yeah.
It's all over.
Yeah. So, and the guy, still Jimmy McGuinness, was the guy who carried out Bishopsgate 9 months later, so they could have had him, yeah. In the interim, in 9 months, he leaves them a merry dance. Now, there's something really important I want to say here. When I was in MI5, I used to think things were a level of incompetence, but I kind of blamed it on the ex-public school boys. Since then, I've come to the conclusion that it wasn't incompetence, that actually McGuinness was working for someone else. It wasn't the Met.
Well, this is one of the questions I was going to say to you.
This wasn't the Metropolitan Police Special Branch or us or any other special branches in the UK. We checked all the other services and things like that. I'm not working for any of them. In Operation Whiteness, the fact that Civil Jimmy McGuinness got away because George Churchill Coleman, the head of the anti-terrorist squad, was not there to give the arrest order.
And what was the excuse? Did you ever find out?
He was in some dinner or something and he got incommunicado. It's the days before mobile phones. They should have been, obviously, you should have known there's a live operation going on. Yeah. No, I actually remember doing it because I did what's called the sit rep on the Friday evening. And I was watching the news all weekend thinking, oh, there'll be, stories about the IRA cell arrested him. Didn't happen. I came in the Monday morning, what happened? He got away. It was like, what? That was my first introduction to doing the IRA.
So this guy got away. So did he get away because he was tipped off? Or did he get away because of just police incompetence and their surveillance was so crap that it was visual and he was able to see that?
I tend to think he was tipped off, and partly because after that he's leading MI5 and the police a merry dance for months.
Because there has been collusion. There has been collusion with the British government and terrorists in Northern Ireland, where they have deliberately, not in error, It's not a war. Innocent people get killed in war. The British government has colluded with terrorists in Northern Ireland, and innocent people have been murdered.
That's usually with the loyalists.
Yes.
But what I'm talking about here is something I now believe comes above government. Anybody who believes that the government is making decisions on our behalf and is doing so freely and according to evidence, I don't know how naive you have to be to believe that anymore. There's clearly things going on behind the scenes that dovetails into banking and secret societies and so on. And I think that McGuinness was some kind of agent of a secret society. In fact, I don't know if you know this, the Irish Declaration of Independence is publicly made by the Irish Brotherhood on behalf of the Irish people. And the Irish Brotherhood is a traditional secret society, basically. But then it got worse, I say, because there was this problem also with Bishopsgate, where in this case GCHQ were in possession of intelligence that was not passed on at the right moment. And that meant the Bishopsgate attack was able to happen. Now again, it raises the interesting question. GCHQ was saying, well, it's too sensitive to pass on, even in the most vague form. And you think, well, what's the point of having intelligence then? You can't pass it on. There's no point in having it.
Am I right? And you can correct me if I'm wrong. With the Libyan embassy, when Yvonne Fletcher was killed, GCHQ had information about that prior to it happening, but GCHQ closed at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. GCHQ only went to 24-hour working as a result of that. Until that point, they worked 9 to 5. I used to joke with people. It's great. The terrorists work 9 to 5, isn't it? It's fantastic. Because they don't. You know? So that was again an example where they had a very good piece of information they'd intercepted from Gaddafi to the Libyan People's Bureau in London, basically saying unleash it on the stray dogs. There is, though, been a lot of question marks about the Yvonne Fletcher thing. I'm not an expert on it, I don't want to go into it, but there is question marks over whether it was Gaddafi or not. But yeah. And obviously when I was doing the IRA, I had my own particular case. Again, a guy called Sean McNulty, but again, he seemed to be somebody who could lead us a merry dance. He always seemed to be one step ahead of us. It was about 18 months we were following him.
So there's several reasons for that. He's smarter, wiser, outpaces you guys. Yeah, that could be one reason. Yep. 2, he's got information that you don't have that's coming from your side. Or 3, it's just all luck and blunders, and he just happens to.
Yeah. And again, obviously, the IRA are well trained in anti-surveillance and that kind of thing. It wouldn't be unusual for them to be out with surveillance like that. But the fact that he seemed to be able to consistently do it all the time. And again, when I take over these cases...
Weren't you following him up in the northeast somewhere?
Yeah, we actually relocated to do a live operation in June 1993.
So talk us through, what is that actually when you're on a live? What, are you hiding in someone's house?
I want to tell you first the background to this, which is what absolutely extraordinary, is that there's 2 attacks on the 9th of June 1993. One's just after midnight, one's just before midnight, so they're virtually 24 hours apart, but nevertheless on the same 9th of June day. So 10th of June, I'm writing this brief about them to the DG. It's one of the jobs I used to have. And I had to walk past my boss's desk in the middle of doing it. He's going to look. I looked down. Look, that's my target there. There's a picture on her desk. What's going on? So I go to Debbie. I said, why have you got a picture of Sean McNulty on your desk? She goes, have I? I said, yes, that's Sean McNulty. She looked at me, I don't know about that. I said, oh, no, the guy's got pointed eyebrows. It's definitely him. They did a check and it was him. But these pictures had been taken 12 days beforehand. And they're actually at the house where the guy who was coordinating the IRA's mainland campaign was staying. So pretty good intelligence. He's gone there. Yeah. Now, obviously, if we'd been following him from there, we would have had him, obviously, putting him there, we would put him right in the middle of it. Really good intelligence. We had 24-hour surveillance. And we would have obviously got him going to the hide where he picked up the Semtex or the guns or whatever. We would have caught him in the act of putting down the bomb. But those pictures weren't passed on for 12 days, basically. So I only saw them on the 10th of June.
That's more likely to be a blunder, isn't it?
It was a blunder, but it's one of those things that is eminently foreseeable. If you're following around terrorists, and I found out this is why this had happened, it was because...
Most blunders are foreseeable. It's just incompetence that...
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is it's not Captain Hindsight to think that if it takes 12 days to pass on pictures in a fast-moving terrorist investigation, you're going to give the advice to the terrorists. But that hadn't crossed MI5's management. When I brought it up with them, they told me to shut up about it. And then... I didn't know what to do, but we used to write this thing, a 1 page of A4, the summary of all operations that went to the Queen, the Prime Minister and so on. So I actually wrote 12-day delay. When I got the final version,
Wasn't there?
it was the picture had been taken the day of the attacks. Basically, there was no 12-day delay. So I went through my boss, checked my version. My version was right. Went to my boss and he just told me to shut up about it. But that again gives you an idea of the mentality there. But to relocate, this again, it was comic because this was early days of MI5 doing this. Now, although they worked quite closely with the Met, there have been few opportunities to work outside London with other forces. So when we turned up in Northumbria, it was like we didn't have a room or anything. Literally, we were going from buying stationery, we didn't have a phone installed or anything. I mean, it was really comical just trying to get the basics sorted out to start with, which we had to do. And then in the way of these things, of course, because he's just carried out the attacks, he's going to be super low profile, obviously. He's going to be doing the last thing. So we spend like, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, something like that, just following this guy around playing football in the pub, everything. We get fed up with it and all this sort of thing. You know, oh my God. And then I'm literally about...
Did they send operatives into the pub ever? Or were they
yeah, they sent them to the pub, yeah. And then... literally, literally on the point of walking out the door. Literally walking out the door and I hear this voice from the office going, "Dave, come back and see this." And it's like walk back in again. I've had a guy going through all the videos in Tyneside, and sure enough, here's a video of McNulty at a petrol station about an hour before the bomb goes off. So in half the hour's time, you've got to be exactly the right place at the right time. Obviously, once you've got that, it's a different matter. What we had before was a lot of very good intelligence, but nothing you could put before a jury. So once we had that, of course, the operation then moved to the idea of an arrest operation. And I went back down to London again.
And did he get done?
Yeah, he got 22 years. It was the first ever intelligence-led conviction against the IRA on the British mainland. And I was the case officer, basically.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So just as an example, just for people that are watching, so you're up in the northeast and you're writing reports.
Yeah.
And those reports need to get back to Whitehall.
MI5.
To London. And you weren't allowed to send them in the post, were you?
No, what you do, obviously, you used to communicate by secure telex in MI5.
Did it go from special branch to special branch to special branch?
Well, that was the problem with these photographs, is that although most of it was done across the wires, photographs and written material actually picked up. So MI5 was still using the same service that it had used of picking up secure material and bringing it down to London by van that it had been using at the times of the communists and the espionage thing. So this is why these photographs have been so late. This van would go up once every 2 weeks, collect the material and bring it back down again. And obviously we've just been at the wrong time. And that's how that happened. But I say, it was, again, there's not a benefit of hindsight there. I'm sorry, that was a major mistake by MI5. And MI5 lied
but surely just common sense says the guy or the lady that drives the van that collects the information, if I'm responsible for he or she or whoever it is that drives that van, there has to be at some point, often, maybe not all the time, but often, where there's time critical information that's being gathered.
Exactly, yeah.
And he or she's driving, it's nonsense. It's just nonsense.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a mathematician to say just the numbers don't work. It's nonsense.
Exactly, yeah. Now, anybody bright would have, as soon as we'd taken over doing the IRA, would have changed the system. But when they knew there was a live operation going on, we thought, we've got to change this now. We can't carry on with this stupid.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, but that gives you an idea. But I say McNulty was fortunately convicted by a 10-2 jury, which is the lowest you can get. And obviously came out as a result of the Good Friday Agreement.
And the so when the information was the physical hard information was passed down via special branch, did it ever leak?
Special branch in the provinces never leaked, but the Met did.
Yeah.
That was one of the other problems doing with the Met, is they were quite leaky.
And also, you as the author of the material, you were responsible for that, weren't you? So if the Met leaked it, you were responsible. Is that right?
No. I mean, I wouldn't be high enough to be held responsible for that.
No.
But yeah, so that was the IRA. I had worked in other operations as well, round the clock operations, stuff like that. I mean, at times it was quite comic. But we essentially beat the IRA in the mainland, and that was where they were getting all their publicity.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, as I say, and it was in spite of management, not because of management. Yeah. That was the thing. And of course, once we got this and they started to move towards the ceasefire, all these people who worked on these desks were dispersed elsewhere in the service. And I was one of the people who were dispersed elsewhere. But when the IRA came back, they didn't think about getting those people back. They didn't think, hang on, these people have got the expertise. And again, that is a failure of management.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. This goes into the whole mentality.
It's the culture.
Whole mentality of bureaucracy and liberalism and so on. It's that no one's an individual, anybody can be made to fit a role or whatever. Whereas anybody who understands human beings knows that we are made by God very differently to play very different roles. And they don't get that. And that's why they'll never succeed. Yeah?
Yeah. I remember when I worked for a big packaging company, and at a management meeting, we were talking about some big pitches that we had, that the company had lined up with customers. And I just remember the big boss, Andy Plymmer, saying who should do them, who should carry out these presentations to customers. And my comment was, the person that's the best presenter. Doesn't matter whether your rank is better than mine or lower than mine or lower than his or hers. The person that's the most effective communicator, the best salesperson, the person that's going to more likely persuade a customer to come on board, that's the person you choose. It's not about rank.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they were saying, oh, so-and-so should do it because of his or her.
Yeah.
I said, no, the best or most effective person should always do it. And yeah, but it worked. That worked. I mean, no one could disagree with that in business.
Yeah,
but this is a business.
Yeah, I say MI5 would have gone out of business if it was a business. But they were very much, they say the whole grade thing was very much part of the mentality. If someone was a higher grade than you, they looked down on you, basically. But yeah, I'm trying to think of the stuff about the IRA.
Were you ever worried about any repercussions from the IRA, personally?
Well, the funny one is that one day I was going through the terrorist indices and I found my own address. I was living at Clapham Court on King's Avenue, just down from Streatham. And I froze, I literally froze. It was two small blocks of flats called courts.
Yeah.
There were 6 flats in each one.
Yeah.
And she was in the same block as me, of 6 flats. It
Yeah.
turned out to be this woman called Donna McGrew, who was from a big IRA family. But they'd also been investigating her because she'd been going out with people from the MOD and the records office, obviously with a view to getting on the past, basically. Yeah. But no one had told me this. They talk about all this vetting stuff like that, supposed to check your address and things like that. No one told me that. I could have been there at a residence meeting with her. I could have said, even though I'd gone under an MOD cover, she would still have seen me as a target. If you found out it was MI5, it might have killed me.
Yeah.
And their response was just to do absolutely nothing. The only question I got was, from your front door to her front door, have you got a line of sight where you can put a camera? That was it.
And the grass is nice. And
Yeah. And it was just like, I say, there was no, they were supposed to idea, oh, we're trying to protect our agents' lives, we'll protect officers' lives. When it actually came to something like that, they didn't want to know. They just didn't want to know.
Incredible.
Yeah, so that was another example of where, I could have come across the IRA directly and
Fantastic.
fortunately didn't.
Brilliant. Thank you for doing that, Dave. That's great.